Hello everyone. Are you able to watch the screen now? I hope it's working fine now. Should we start? I think it's working pretty fine now.
We should start the streaming right now. I think it's pretty much time. So we will start first with our introduction. Let me introduce Rajat over here. So Rajat, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, myself Rajat Arora, currently working as an Android developer, having around 2.6 years of experience in Android development.
Okay, and I'm Kshitij Jain. I have around 1 year and 6 months of experience in Android development. And before that, I was into SEO thing. So that's pretty much about us. Now we will start this MVP session today. I hope whoever is watching, our voice is pretty much fine. Anyone confirm that? Ramesh, can you confirm, is our voice okay? Okay, guys, thanks Ripshab for telling us it's clear. So we're gonna start today with MVP, that is Model View Presenter. First of all, we're gonna talk about what is MVP and why should we use that, right?
Yeah.
So Rajat, to you.
Yeah, basically MVP consists as model view presenter, and I would like to tell you about the basic introduction of the MVP. Like MVP is a pattern, a model view presenter pattern is a derivative from a well-known form, the MVC, model view controller, which we are using earlier, which for a while now is gaining importance in the development of the Android application. Like MVP is getting day by day famous, and it's our turn to get hands on MVP. So let me tell you, they are the basic two questions which everyone is keen to know about, that what is MVP and why to use MVP. So Kshitij will tell you that what is MVP.
Okay, so the MVP pattern allows separate the presentation layer from the logic. So whatever we do till point right now, what we used to do is we write all business logic in our activities, right? But that's not good thing to do. What we have to do is we have to take out all the business presentation, business logic that we used to do, and take that in separate layer, right? So that's why we have MVP. The simple definition of MVP is the MVP pattern allows separate the presentation layer from the logic, so that everything about how the interface work is separated from how we represent it on the screen. I think it's pretty much clear from the definition itself what MVP is. First thing to clarify is that MVP is not an architectural pattern. You must have seen my comments on LinkedIn that it is an architectural pattern, but its definition says otherwise. It says it's not the architectural pattern, but it's not only responsible for the presentation layer. It's the only thing responsible for the presentation layer, right? So we use MVP in order to achieve a lot of things. Like we in earlier days we don't do testing or stuff like that, but in upcoming days when we gain some experience and things, we need to test our app that it's working fine, and a lot of things we have to do at that point of time. So MVP is a good pattern to do and achieve the results, right? Rajat will tell you why to use MVP.
As you already know that the activities are closely coupled with the business layer as well as the interact layer. So the basic criteria to follow MVP is to separate the business layer and the UI layer, basically called the user layer or the user interaction layer. So all in earlier days, like we are currently doing the in MVC pattern, or the currently we are following that the all the business logics and the interaction user controls are coupled in the UI, coupled in the activities only. So the basic criteria to use MVP is to just to separate that. And I can tell you that why to use MVP in a why to use MVP in a theoretical way. In Android, we have a problem arising from the fact that Android activities are closely coupled to both interfaces and data access mechanism. Like I told you earlier, we can find the extreme example such as cursor adapter or our recycler view adapter, list adapters, which are part of the view, something that should be relegated to the depth of the access layer. Basically in it's a complex scenario. I can tell you in a simple ways. For example, if we are displaying the adapter in the activities, we are getting data from the interactor, which we are from the model, and it display in the basically view. So these two are the different things, like we getting the data from the model and displaying it the view. So these are the separation points. In the earlier days, in the earlier scenarios, we get the data in the activity section and we will display it in the activity section. But by the use of MVP, we can get the data in the interactor layer and display it in the UI layer. And to achieve this scenario, to achieve this process, the MVP consists of the three layers. The three layers are the presenter, the view, and the model. These three layers will be explained by the Kshitij.
Uh, okay, so we have three layers. The presenter is responsible to act as the middle man between view and model. And by the name, you will see the second is the view and third is the model. So the view is actually the activity that we are working with. It may be fragment, it may be activity, that depends upon how you are coding your application. And the model is an layer architecture which does all the business logic and do everything pretty nasty stuff for you, right? And then you tell presenter that everything is done, and presenter tell view that you have to show this thing or something like that. So we know that this talk is really out of the going above your head, right? So what we are gonna do now is we're gonna code something in MVP, and that will make everything clear for you, definitely.
It will display you the clear picture of the MVP, and you find it that it's a very easy process. And if, I know that in theoretical process it will be very confusing to get it to get hands on MVP. When we are starting with the MVP, we feel the same thing, that MVP is clearly a complex pattern which can't be achieved by the theoretical knowledge. But when you apply it on the practical way, you can get better hands on MVP, and you find it pretty easy and pretty much effective in, like, if you have to perform the unit testing. In that case, you find it pretty much interesting that it would be very easy when you do the testing. The presentation layer will work only in that case, and the interactor layer is separate from the testing layer. So now we can start the live example of the MVP. It will display you the clear picture.
So everyone is ready. Please write down your comments if you're ready and you are listening this.
Here we define the packages which we use to achieve the MVP pattern. There will be classes like interactor, presenters, and the view. So we will define it in the code. Let's start, Satij.
Okay, so different people do MVP in their own way, and what we like is component package by component. So what package by component is, for example, you have one activity that is login activity. So we will create a separate package for that, and if you have another activity that is main activity, we will have another package for that. So this is known as package by component, right? So what we're gonna do now is we will code an example of login that will be in MVP, of course. So first thing to do is we're gonna right click on our package name com.example.chili. Map my
MVP
example, right? MVP example, and we're gonna click on new and package, right? So this is a login example, so we'll name that as login, right? So our package is ready. The second thing we're gonna need is to define the structures that we need to do in this package, right? So let me clear this point by this way. So we have a view, right? So view should be an activity. So first we create an activity. We'll go to new activity and empty activity. I'll name it as login activity, right? And finish. Okay, so here we have login activity, right? The second thing is presenter, right? So what we're gonna do is create an interface for that, and that will be known as login presenter. So we will name it as login presenter, and it will be an interface, right? Okay. And the third thing we have to define is a model, right? So we don't actually write it as model, because we have sometimes we have models from our API response. So we give model to that, name to that. In this case, we just name it as Interactor. So we're gonna create another interface and name it as login Interactor. And here it is. Now the other thing we have to do is we gonna create an interface for our activity, and it's gonna have all the methods that we need to do in our activity, right? So we're gonna create a new Java class, we're gonna create a new Java class, and that's gonna be an interactor, and it would be it's gonna be a login view, and it's gonna be an interface. Okay, now we have created an interface for login presenter. Now we have to do something with that. So we're gonna implement that in a class, separate class. We're gonna name that as login presenter IMPL. IMPL where implements is implementation. So it implies implementation. Again, same case with the interactor. We created the interface. Now we have to create a Java class to implement all the functionalities in that. So interactor IMPL, right? So this is the basic structure of our MVP. We create an activity, login activity. We create a view for that, that is an interface. We create a presenter. We create a class for login presenter implementation. We create an interface, login interactor, and we then create something as login interactor implementation class, right? So this is our basic structure. Are you clear to this point? Would you just comment that? Okay, so I'll hand over to Rajat now. He will tell you more about the MVP and what we have done till now, right?
Like already specified that we are using the three layers of MVP: the preview, the presenter, and the interactor. Interactor is equals to model. For every class, there is an interface which we provided that, and for example, like the login activity, there is a interface that links to the login activity. It's login view, which consists as a view which specify the first layer of the MVP. It's the view, and the second layer of the is MVP is the presenter, and we specified the login presenter implementation class, and for the login presenter implementation class we have a login presenter interface. Like these two classes, or the one class and the one interface, represent the second layer of the MVP pattern is the presenter, and the third layer is called the interactor, where the whole business logic will perform, and it will return the data, like the interactor class and the interactor implementation class and the interactor interface. Login interactor interface is for the interactor implementation class. These interactor and this class represent the third layer of the MVP, that is the model. These two classes will return us the data, and the whole business logic will perform in under these two classes only. So let me start with the view section. As the login activity. In login activity, we have our view functions. For implementing the view functions, we have to implement the login view, and in login view we have to perform different kinds of UI functions. So we have to specify the login view methods which are going to performed by the user. So let me start with the login view method.
Okay, so this is an interface, and if you know about interface, you just create methods over there. You don't have to implement that, right? So we'll just create the methods which we will implement in activity class. So the first method, what we need to do when something we interact with something, right? We have to display a progress, right? So first method would be void show progress. So this is the method where we will show our progress bar or something like that, right? The second method is, of course, if we are showing that, we have to hide that. So second will be hide progress. The third method, okay, we will have a username field, and we will have a password field, and then we will tap on login button. If I haven't write anything in user field, what I want to do is show an error to user that you haven't filled the username. So we will say void show set username error. That will be our third method. Okay, and this is the same case with password. So the method will be void set password error. After that, if our login details are correct, right, we have to go somewhere to the main activity or to some other class. So other method would be void navigate to main activity. Navigate to main, right? And in the last, if we get an error, we have to return some error, right? We have to show that error. So the method would be void show alert, and it will take one parameter, that is string message. Okay, so our login view is complete. To create these things, you don't have to be experienced or something like that. You just have to what your view is going to do. Like I have thought that it's gonna show a progress, hide a progress, and do these stuff. So you just have to think about what your view is going to do, right? So that's all you have to do in this login view interface. Rest Rajat will take over from here.
Yeah, these methods is dependent upon how you need them. Like what are your circumstances, what you action have to perform. These methods are not the predefined methods which we have to every time we have to specify or have to declare that. It depends upon the scenario which you are facing. On that scenarios, the method will be declared by you, so that you can easily understand which functionality which you have to perform in these methods. Like now I'm coming to the login activity section. I'm login activity section. In login activity section, we have to implement these views. We have to implement this interface. Like I already specified that the login activity is linked to the login view, so the login activity will implement the login view interface. For implementing the interface, we just have to write the implements login view. It will give us the error that you have to implement the method. Like by this we can alt plus enter, we can implement the methods. Implement methods, it's specifying that all the method hide progress, navigate to main, set password error, like we declared that methods in the interface. Now I'm okay, and so all these methods are there. Now we have to perform some functions over here only, but but wait, we are going to the login presenter section, because these functions still now are not doing anything. To get it work, we can move to the login presenter section. So initially we are going to just take a break to the presenter section. We will going to the XML section, in which we are creating the XML views, so that you can have a better understanding over that. So I'm just using the preview section over here, and just implementing the linear layout. So so in linear layout, basically we'll have a edit text, which is the match parent, hide wrap content, and input type we specified the name, so the text apps words, and id ed, its username.
And as we specifies linear layout, we have to give orientation to that.
Yeah.
Right, and
We have to like the hint is enter username.
okay, and second field we are going to have is password. So again, id text, match parent wrap content, id is ed password, input type is password, hint is enter password. Right, and in the end we will have a button.
Like we have a button which text is the done button, on which we are validating the email username and the password field. So in the last case we will define a progress bar. Progress bar wrap content, and wrap content, it's like we can say that 20 dp 20 dp, yeah, it's pretty much visible. We can do that to 30 dp and 30 dp, and we can specify the gravity over here, so that it will be in the center horizontal. So when we click on the done button, the the progress bar will get visible, and if it the if the success case is if the success case is worked, like we have the user enters the proper username and the password field, and the progress bar will display over that. And when the success comes from the end interactor section, the progress bar will be hide. So we are taking these IDs to the Java section, so we can move to the now activity section. So we have a ed username, we can specify it in our activity section. We are taking a edit text.
Right.
Ed username, and there is a other edit text, that is we is already specified ed password. It's just basic the naming convention which we are following right now. You don't have to do that if you are just you are in a demo activity, then you can avoid these things.
Then we have a button.
Then we have a button. I think I didn't specify the ID over there, so I'll just specify the ID of button. It's ID btn done, and there is a progress bar, ID pb load. So button btn done, and there is a private progress bar pb load.
So we define all the views that we are using in our activity. Now we have to link that with our Java class, and we'll do it by the old-fashioned way, find view by ID. We could use button I but for this example, we are using find view by ID the traditional way. And window D, we can come over here and window D, and again window D. Yeah. We will also specify this pb load is its visibility is gone in the starting. Okay, so it will not show until we want to, right? So we have all the views defined over here. The next step would be going to login presenter and do the stuff that we want to do over there, right?
So in login presenter, we will have two methods, and these two methods are void validate credentials. In credentials, I'm getting the two things, like I'm getting the user enter the username, and the user will enter the password, user password. I'm getting these two things which I have to get validated. So to get these two parameters, we'll have to define it in the constructor, like it's the string username string
Password. Right. And the other method we will have here is void destroy method, right? We'll tell you later why this is required. When we'll implement that, you will all know why we use that, right? So interface, login presenter interface is ready right now. We only have these two methods in that, and of course, as this is login presenter, so our login presenter IMPL will implement that, right? And it will ask for implementing those methods, and here we are, right? Now the third thing is we gonna move to interface of login interactor, and we gonna write some methods over here too
to achieve the results and to validate the credential. In login interactor interface, we'll have to define one interface inside the login interactor interface. That interactor is basically a listener which will return it's a whether success or failure. These interface methods will provide you the actual implementation of the actual result of the user, which the user entered in the username field and the password field. So here here I define an interface which is interface on login finished listener. Okay. In that case, we define the two methods.
Okay, so we could have three things over here. Four things actually. First is we get username error. So right, we will define it as void on username error. On username error. The second thing is on password error. The next thing would be on void on success, because we have to tell that this operation we were doing is success. And the last and the final method would be void on failure, and that will have one parameter, that is string message. Alright, so on login finish listener is complete. Now we will have another method over here which will contain the username, the password, and this listener as its parameter, right? So we create that void login string username string password, and at the last we have on login finish listener right? So our login interactor is also complete. Now as we do in previous interfaces, we're gonna implement that in login interactor IMPL, right? So we're gonna close this and go to login presenter IMPL, interactor IMPL, and we're gonna implement that. And we're gonna click Alt Enter and implement methods, right? So we have this method over here. Now in login presenter implementation, we have to implement one more thing, that is login interactor dot on login finish listener. Okay, so our basic structure is ready. Now the thing we have to do is just write what we have to do in these methods. So Rajat will take over from here.
Like I've already got that someone already get confused why we are login interactor, why we defined an interface over here, like why the nested interface is here. Basically these interfaces method will be called when your login process is getting called, like it will display the username error, password error, on success, on failure error. The actual method is called over here only. Like for example, if you want to get validated your the username and password, you'll call this function, and this will tell you whether your password name is correct or wrong. By now, how this method will tell you the further in the further video, you will get to know the better of the, like I'm coming in the implementation. Here we called Two methods are by from is enter section and the login interactor or on login finish. These are methods by finished listener. Have to create a
Yes, create a constructor first. Let's create it over here, right? First we view
yeah.
login view.
Yeah. Object of login view.
We are creating object of login view because tell view that you right. So we